Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing great today. Okay, so in the wake of the recent US airstrikes on ISIS locations or targets in Sokoto state, a lot of people have reached out to me asking me to, Joe, you gotta say something about this. And I'm like, I've been posting a lot about this on my X account. I just haven't made a video because there's just way too much to unpack. But maybe I can try my best to scratch the surface so you can understand the magnitude of what we just got ourselves into in Nigeria. So first of all, let us look at the significance of both the operation and the location of the first set of strikes. This operation is so significant because since the Nigerian Biafran War, no foreign entity has ever dropped a bomb on Nigerian soil or shown any sign of aggression to the point of exchanging gunfire, let alone dropping bombs. But today, that has happened on December the 25th, 2025. And now the significance of the location of the first strikes, and I'm going to tell you something about first strikes in military operations like this. The significance is the Sokoto Caliphate. The Sokoto Caliphate, a very powerful 19th century Islamic empire that is still extremely influential. In fact, about the most influential caliphate in all of sub-Saharan Africa. Its influence is stretched beyond the shores of Nigeria. In all the news we have heard over the last 10-15 years about Islamic terrorism against Christians or against anybody in Nigeria, I don't think I've ever heard Sokoto mentioned. If at all, probably in the passing. It's always been Borno, Yobe, Taraba, Plateau, Kaduna, Zamfara, Benue, not Sokoto. And if you know anything about military operations of this nature, whenever they carry out their first strikes, it's usually aimed at the head of the big serpent. It's usually aimed at the logistical center, at the main operational hub from where all the operations of the terrorists are hatched, cooked, manufactured, and disseminated, controlled from. It's a hub. Everything is controlled out of the head. And that's what makes this very troubling. That after all the intelligence that they gathered, they concluded that the head of the serpent is in Sokoto, where you have the most important and influential caliphate in sub-Saharan Africa. If that didn't shock you, it shook me to my core. Very significant. What were the ISIS guys doing in Sokoto to the point they had a hub, a coordinating logistical hub in that place, which is what the US reportedly bombed, even though we're still waiting for all the other details of that operation? That says a lot. While we were focused on Borno and others, coordination, according to the US guys, was happening in that region. Secondly, something else that stood out for me. Remember that when Donald Trump went ahead and made that post in his usual style, the Nigerian Foreign Ministry immediately followed it up with another post of their own. And what were they saying in the post? They were basically saying that, hey, this was done in coordination with the Nigerian authorities and that even the president gave his consent. Granted. But then the same foreign minister goes on Channels Television and then he began to, let me use the word, wail that he had spoken with the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, twice before the operation was carried out. And that there was an agreement that the report or the press release after the attacks should indicate that this was done in cooperation with Nigeria and that it is done to end terrorism against Nigerian citizens, which meant that it wasn't supposed to have any religious coloration or undertone. And by religious coloration or undertone, they mean you shouldn't say you are killing terrorists who are killing Christians. Because they do not believe still that there is a Christian genocide in Nigeria. Even though Donald Trump has made it abundantly clear. We have the intelligence, we have the evidence, we have the proofs. You are carrying out a Christian genocide in your country. They still don't want America because they are too small to advise America on something that America has intelligence on. Donald Trump went ahead and blasted the news and made it clear. I already warned you that by killing Christians, America will intervene. That we're not going to stand by idly and let you kill Christians. And because I said it to you, I am now doing what I said I will do. I told you. He put it in his report. He said, I warned you that I would do this, and I have done it. And if the killing continues, there will be more. He made it clear, abundantly clear, that this bombing is because you're killing Christians. Nigeria doesn't like that. This is the same thing that happened when Ribadu went to see Pete Hegseth in D.C. Immediately after the meeting, the Nigerian side released a report saying that Nigeria has agreed to, or U.S. has agreed to coordinate or cooperate with Nigeria in fighting against terrorism. And the regime Iraq began to run around the whole place. Yeah, you thought America would do something. Yeah, now they have bowed. They are coordinating with us. Then expecting Pete Hegseth to say the same thing, Hegseth came and released its own report and said, we have just agreed to work together with Nigeria to destroy the terrorists who are killing innocent Christians in Nigeria. That one shook them. They're like, but this is not... The guys didn't care. You cannot get America to propagandize with you over the dead bodies of innocent Christians who have been massacred for the past 15 years. It's absolutely impossible. And so this is what has happened. But now let me tell you the third thing. One of the videos I made, you can go check on all my platforms. I talked about the Israeli dimension to this. People were probably not paying attention. How is it that on the same day that Benjamin Netanyahu for the first time spoke up against Christian massacres and genocide in Nigeria and said that that has got to stop and it has to stop now? That was on the 25th day of December 2025. The same day he spoke, the night of that day, the U.S. Army carried out their first set of airstrikes against ISIS targets in Sokoto State. What is going on? I warned you that these people are wary of the Islamic terrorists taking over in Nigeria and gaining access to Nigeria's oil wealth, knowing that if they do, Israel will bear the brunt of it. And so, what's next for Israel? I'll explain it to you now.
UK double standards exposed. Britain secures release and return of Muslim activist Allah Abd El Fattah while failing to protect dual British citizen Mazi Nnamdi Kanu from unlawful rendition and life imprisonment. Owerri, December 28, 2025, the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, under the leadership of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, strongly condemns the glaring double standards displayed by the British government and Prime Minister Keir Starmer in their treatment of British nationals facing detention abroad. On December 26, 2025, Prime Minister Starmer publicly expressed delight at the return to the UK of British-Egyptian activist Allah Abd El Fattah, a Muslim pro-democracy campaigner, following his pardon and release from Egyptian detention, describing it as a profound relief and a top priority for his government. Yet, for over 4 years, the same government has offered only minimal consular support to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, a dual British-Nigerian citizen and Judeo-Christian advocate for peaceful self-determination, who was subjected to extraordinary rendition from Kenya in June 2021, tortured, and detained in violation of international law. At no time has Britain prevailed upon Nigeria to obey the multiple judicial decisions condemning Kanu's rendition and ordering his release. This selective advocacy raises profound questions about consistency in protecting British citizens. Had Mazi Nnamdi Kanu been Muslim, it is inconceivable that the UK would have remained passive in the face of his unlawful abduction, sham proceedings, and recent vindictive life sentence. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's abduction and ongoing detention have been repeatedly declared unlawful by authoritative bodies. A federal high court, in its judgment of October 26, 2022, ordered the Nigerian government to return Mazi Nnamdi Kanu to Kenya, halt his trial, and pay $500 million in damages for the unlawful abduction and violation of his rights. The Nigerian Court of Appeal, in its judgment of October 13, 2022, Appeal No. CA/ABJ/CR/625/2022, discharged and acquitted Kanu, ruling that his extraordinary rendition from Kenya without due process violated international law and stripped Nigerian courts of jurisdiction to try him. The United Nations Human Rights Council Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, in Opinion No. 25/2022, adopted April 2022, published July 20, 2022, found Kanu's deprivation of liberty arbitrary under multiple categories, in contravention of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. The working group called for his immediate release, compensation, and investigation into those responsible. A Kenyan High Court, in its June 2025 judgment, declared Kanu's abduction, incommunicado detention, and transfer to Nigeria unlawful and unconstitutional, awarding him compensatory damages. Despite these binding findings, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu remains in detention following a controversial November 20, 2025, federal high court conviction and life sentence, a ruling accomplished legal minds have described as relying on a repealed law and ignoring higher court precedents. This conviction represents a profound assault on constitutional safeguards and turns logic on its head. The Court of Appeal's 2022 discharge and acquittal, grounded in the fundamental jurisdictional defect of unlawful rendition, equates to a final acquittal under Section 36(9) of the 1999 Nigerian Constitution, which provides non-derogable protection against double jeopardy. No person acquitted by a competent court can be retried on the same charges or those with identical ingredients. Britain knows this, because they gave common law to Nigeria. The Supreme Court's December 15, 2023, ruling, FRNV, Kanu, SC/CR/1364/2022, which purportedly distinguished Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's discharge as a procedural, rather than merits-based, acquittal to allow retrial, is a sleight of hand that derogates from constitutional supremacy. Jurisdiction is the lifeblood of adjudication. Without it, proceedings are a nullity ab initio, as per Hornbook law, e.g., Medukala v. Nkemdalim. No interpretive maneuver, even by the apex court, can override Section 36(9)'s ironclad guarantee, which trumps any per incurriam decision ignoring binding precedents like FRNV, IFGU. The November 2025 conviction is thus a constitutional nullity, enabling the state to benefit from its own illegality and eroding the rule of law for all Nigerians. IPOB has always maintained that its pursuit of self-determination is peaceful and in line with international law. The UK government itself declined to designate IPOB as a terrorist organization, recognizing the non-violent nature of the movement. The historical context of British hostility towards Biafra and the Igbo race cannot be ignored. Britain's approach reflects unresolved legacies, including resistance to colonial rule such as the Ekumeku movement, the ABA Women's Uprising of 1929, the Enugu coal miners' struggles, and the Biafran War, events that underscore the Igbo people's long-standing quest for dignity and justice. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu embodies principled, non-violent advocacy for these aspirations. His continued detention undermines Britain's claimed commitment to human rights and the rule of law. IPOB calls upon the United Nations, African Union, European Union, and United States to press Nigeria for full compliance with the UN Working Group Opinion No. 25/2022, the 2022 Nigerian Court of Appeal judgment, and the Federal High Court Umuahia ruling, including Kanu's immediate and unconditional release. The British government to provide robust consular and diplomatic intervention commensurate with its efforts in other high-profile cases, including public condemnation of the unlawful rendition and demands for compliance with international rulings. British parliamentarians, human rights organizations, faith leaders, and the global Igbo diaspora to amplify calls for justice. Speaking on behalf of IPOB, Media and Publicity Secretary Emma Powerful stated, Britain cannot publicly celebrate the freedom of one activist as a top priority, while offering mere statements for another British citizen whose detention has been ruled arbitrary and unlawful by the UN and multiple courts, especially when the disparity appears tied to faith and geopolitical alignment. Justice must be blind and equal. We demand fairness, transparency, and the immediate release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. IPOB reaffirms its commitment to peaceful, legal, and democratic means in pursuing self-determination. We will continue global advocacy until justice prevails. For media inquiries, Emma Powerful, Media and Publicity Secretary, IPOB. Stay tuned for more updates. Stay safe and have a blessed day.